Hey mamas, and welcome to the Entering Motherhood podcast. I'm your host, Sarah Marie Bilger, a birth and postpartum doula who is passionate about helping women enter motherhood feeling informed, supported, and empowered. Join us every episode to learn from professionals, special guests, and moms just like you, ensuring that you know what you need to know and discover things that you didn't know before. I believe in you. Let's doula this and let's navigate the transition of entering motherhood together. In this episode, we talk with Aimee Minnaugh, who is the founder of MotherSense, and she shares her personal journey through multiple pregnancies and pregnancy losses, also her discovery of a genetic mutation, which was affecting her folic acid metabolism. She was frustrated by inadequate prenatal vitamins that were on the market. So Aimee worked with clinicians to develop a comprehensive supplement that contained bioavailable folate, choline, and omega-3s. She also discusses postpartum nutrition, hydration, pelvic floor therapy, and beginning prenatal supplements at least 3 months before conception. It was so great getting to know Aimee and hear about her motherhood experience. I hope that you walk away from this episode feeling a little bit more knowledgeable on nutrients and supplements for pregnancy and postpartum, and look into finding what might work best for you along the way. Welcome to Entering Motherhood. I'm glad to have you here today and get this episode started. But before we do, how about you go ahead and introduce yourself for the listeners?
Sure, thank you. I'm Aimee Minnaugh. I am the founder of MotherSense. Our primary product that we've launched, we just launched this past year, but it's MotherSense Prenatal Plus. It's a clinically formulated prenatal that offers higher quality forms of nutrients and gives you the clinical doses that you really need for optimal neonatal outcomes. I'm a mother, so I'm not a clinician myself, but worked with a lot of clinicians in coming up with what's the right formulation when I was searching for prenatal myself on the market and really couldn't find one that would truly support me or the baby that I would be carrying. So yeah, and I love talking about nutrition. I've done lots of research on nutrition. I'm actually in a program to become a certified functional nutritional counselor. So I love talking about nutrition and what's going to be the best thing to help support women's health.
Awesome. When did you enter motherhood and what did that look like, and why was nutrition such a vital part of your journey?
My first child was born in 2017. And so she was a rainbow baby. I had a miscarriage first. We were first pregnant in 2016, lost that baby. And then we had my first daughter. And then, fast forward 4 years later, we had another child. That worked very well. But then after that, we had two more miscarriages. And it was as a result of the miscarriages that you're like, okay, one, we understand the doctors say like those things happen. But once we had three, that was just like, there's something else going on here that just doesn't seem right. And so that's when we really started doing some research on our own. I had a lot of like lab tests that I did to try and figure some things out. And that's when we came across the fact that I have an MTHFR mutation. It's a genetic mutation. There's estimated between 40 to 60% of the world population actually has some variant form of this mutation. And what it does is it really like, so a lot of supplements, like a lot of prenatals that are out there use folic acid. That's what's recommended to prevent neural tube defects. And then fortified foods, because and that's a whole different like rabbit hole I could go down on like how wheat is processed these days. But basically the folate is stripped from that through all the processing. And so when you have like fortified cereals and breads, it's because they're adding folic acid back because it no longer is in part of what you're consuming from the processing. But with this genetic mutation, you can't successfully process and convert folic acid, the synthetic form, to folate, the bioactive, bioavailable form. And so that can cause problems, right? Like then you're not really able to prevent the neural tube defects because what you're consuming isn't actually doing what it's supposed to be doing. And so then once we discovered that, and we started doing more research and looking at more studies that have been done recently, that's when we started finding out, oh, well, it's not just folate that you need, like choline is actually super critical to preventing neural tube defects as well, and baby fetal brain development, omega-3s, particularly DHA. And then when I started looking, the prenatal I was taking, just like the off the shelf one that I bought, and then looking around on the internet, none of them had, like, proper forms of these things, like, a lot of them, like I said, had folic acid, or they wouldn't even have choline, or they didn't have the right type of choline. They, again, had a synthetic version of choline, and if they did, it was, like, bare minimum to be able to say that it was in their product, but not actually something that's truly going to support your baby or you as a mom. Or, for example, the DHA and EPA, the omega-3s, a lot of times those aren't included in a one prenatal. You have to go buy that separately. So it was just, a lot of research that went into that we were like, this is insane. Like it shouldn't be that we shouldn't have to be a scientist to figure out how to get an appropriate prenatal for us to support our own health and our child's health. And so that's what then stemmed, going and working with the right clinicians and building, our own prenatal to offer out on the market.
Yeah, I think, like, exactly like you're saying, like, it shouldn't be that hard to just be getting these what you would say is, like, basic nutrients, from our food and just from our diets and, like, all around us, and it's crazy to think, like, even with all the supplements out there and things like that, and you're still looking for, "No, like, where is this?" Even ones that claim that they're prenatals, and it doesn't have all of the different things, or you have to, yeah, like you said, like a little bit of this or a little bit of that, and by the time, like, you notice, like, you're taking 6 different pills, and
Well, and the
it's
cost of it alone, I mean,
yeah.
a lot of times the reason that things like choline and DHA or even magnesium aren't included in most prenatals, there's 3 common reasons. One is capsule size, right? Like the amount there's just there those ingredients, you need such high volumes of them and they take up so much space that they couldn't do the 1 pill a day, right? Because in reality, 1 pill is not actually doing anything for you. If your prenatal is only 1 tablet a day, you are not getting what you need from it. And so that's one of the issues is that people don't wanna, give you multiple pills in a day, which that's what we do, by the way, because that's what we know you need. The second reason is it's really expensive to include the high quality doses of some of these ingredients like magnesium, choline, and DHA. And so a lot of companies don't want to spend right the money to on those high quality ingredients. And then the third reason is just really looking at outdated formulations where they were really focusing on like calcium and iron and the folic acid. Whereas now, although, calcium, iron, things of the iodine, those are all important. More research has shown that it's things like choline, the folate, choline, and the omega-3s that are actually really important. And so, because they're just using outdated formulations, they're not considering including those.
Yeah. Yeah, and why do you feel so, like, I always like to say, try to get your nutrients from your food first, and you kind of talked about, grains being stripped and fortified foods and things like that, but, like, why do you feel we're not necessarily getting what we need out of what we're eating? And I guess kind of talk about, like, more so, like, why you feel like supplementation is so necessary.
Yep. Yeah. So for certain nutrients like choline, it would be nearly impossible for you to just consume from your regular diet the amount that's really needed to support not just you during your pregnancy or like postpartum. We can talk about that in a little bit too, because it doesn't just stop when you're pregnant, but then your baby as well. Because choline, like for example, one good source of choline is an egg, right? But in one egg, you eat one egg, it's only 112-ish milligrams of choline, when in reality, studies have shown you need upwards of like 900, like we have 950 milligrams in our prenatal. And so if you think about that, right, like who and an egg actually is one of the ones that have the highest amount per egg, serving that you're gonna
Like volume?
consume.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So who's eating 9 eggs a day? Right? Or like, you're just it's gonna be really difficult. And then when you think about, okay, you're gonna eat 9 eggs a day, then in order to get your omega-3s with your DHA and EPA, and DHA is very important, so that's gonna be from fatty fish. So are you going to be eating 9 eggs plus a serving of salmon, and then for the rest of your folate and other minerals, right? You go to the leafy greens, but then for leafy greens for like folate and other minerals, it takes so much like spinach, for example, to get what you need. So it would be you just couldn't possibly consume enough in a day to get that. So that's why, yes, I am all for it. Like, I definitely say you wanna eat a real food, whole food diet, nutrient dense diet, but it's just not enough to support you and your baby because of just, serving sizes and how much is really in there and being processed by your body.
Yeah. Yeah, so back in 2017, you were having your first. How did this kind of start to become what it is now, and what were you doing, I guess, in the meantime?
Yeah, so until we created our own prenatal, which we just launched this in 2025, I was literally buying each supplement and piecemealing it together, going to companies that I know, okay, this is truly like this is the good omega-3, right? And so I had like 20 pills I was taking a day because I had to make it myself from all these different bottles, right? It was like, okay, I need 4 vitamin D tablets. I need 2 of these magnesium tablets. Then I need 2 of, and then it was like 2 of these phosphatidylcholines and then 1 of these. And really just adding it all together, and it honestly became just, exhausting, right? And then also when I try to take them, so I'm, got these granny pill packs, right, for Sunday through Saturday, and I'm filling them up with all these pills, but then it's like, one day I'll start taking the pills and think, "Wait a minute, I only took 16. I'm supposed to take 20. What 4 did I miss? What did I forget to put in there, right?" And so it's just, you can make mistakes, you can forget things. It's really not an effective way of living, which is why we're like, "No, we need to fix this. Like, this is insane." And that's when we started pursuing creating our own prenatal that gives you all of the tablets you need, all 7 in 1 sachet. So all you have to remember is to grab your sachet, and that's it. You don't have to assemble it yourself. And it's actually so much cheaper. I was spending tons of money per month to buy all these different pill bottles. So it's just yeah.
Yeah. And now you have another baby.
Yes, we do. Yep, as of 2 months ago, it's another rainbow baby for us, and we couldn't be happier, and he's doing so well. It's our first boy.
So how has this journey been different?
Oh my gosh, so much better, and I'll tell you, I had so much more energy and, like, I don't know, I wasn't that exhausted during this past pregnancy, maybe because I didn't have the stress of assembling all these things too and worrying about it and making sure I got it right. Or maybe it's because now I also have learned over the years and I know more now than I did when I was pregnant the first time 8 years ago. But it just he's honestly so much better too. It's interesting, like, I can tell he's so much more alert and, like, he can see so much better. So he's 2 months old now, but even, like, a month ago, when he was only 1 month old, he was, like, tracking the ball, a little, like, high contrast ball and, like, following us in the room, and there are certain things that I can tell that, wow, like, you are, like, so, like, so much better, you know what I mean? Because I was a lot more conscious about making sure what did I eat, how much did I eat, and then having the supplementation, like, it's it definitely, like, I can see the difference.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really cool to see, like, the different personalities and, like, your different journeys, like, through pregnancy to pregnancy, and it's one of those, like, like, once you know more, then you can do more, and you can really kind of work that in. What are some other things that you did differently this time around than you had done back in 2017?
Making sure that I'm definitely getting enough water, like, staying hydrated. I also I didn't and so this is another, like, whole thing that we could go down on too, but, so I did not keep up with my, like, high intensity, like, strength training workouts every single day like I did before. So, like, my first it was after a loss, like I had said, and that one had to happen just after I came home from the gym. So I was worried that that had something to do with it, right? That's first time. So then when I had my first in 2017, I really backed off of my workouts, afraid that I was going to do something that was going to harm her. And then my labor and delivery was so fast, easy. It was like beautiful, right? Then when I had my second daughter in 21, I didn't stop my workouts because I was like, I learned like that had nothing to do with it. Like there's no reason. And so I was still really doing heavy lifting. Like I'm a strength trainer. Like that's what I did. But then with her labor and delivery, it actually was a little difficult. It was a little more challenging and like the pushing was a lot harder than with my first. So then I started learning and reading studies about how, like, people who have been strength training for a long time, like, their muscles are tight, and it's harder for you to, like, really relax them and allow that uterus to do what it needs to do for
Mhm.
pushing. So this time around, since learning all of that, I backed off a lot, and again, I did some things here and there, but I did not do like, keep up the hard strength training, and then this was probably my best labor and delivery of all 3. So, you should exercise, you wanna make sure that you stay fit, but there is something to be said too of making sure that you also can mentally make sure that your muscles are able to relax when that you need to relax, and, like, really focusing on just letting your body and its natural muscles do its thing.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think most of the time you'll hear, people are too tight, like their muscles are too tight, their pelvic floor is too tight, and it's more so they need to learn to loosen and relax because yeah, that's what we need to expand and create that space and to have baby come through. And so, yeah, a lot of times people are like, "Oh, well, I strength train or I work out, and so I'm gonna be great at pushing this baby out, and sometimes it's almost the opposite. And so, yeah,
Exactly.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
very cool. I guess we can kind of then jump into postpartum. So, a lot of people know, like taking a prenatal is great and helpful when you're pregnant, but what about when we transition into the postpartum period?
Yeah, so in your postpartum phase, that's probably your most nutritionally demanding time of your life, and yet often that is when the support just falls off, right? They're like, "Well, you had your baby. Good job. Good luck. Raise that raise that baby." But in reality, like, that is when you need to focus even harder, right? Like, you had to focus on all those nutrients and eat a real nutrient-dense diet in order to support the baby's growth in utero. But if you're breastfeeding, that continues, right? You are the baby's only source of nutrients. So if you are deficient, say in like vitamin B12, which is critical, if you're deficient in vitamin B12, your breast milk is going to be lacking in that as well. And that is your baby's only source of nutrients. So they are not going to have the proper amount of vitamin B12 for their growth. So it's very important to continue focusing on repleting your nutrients that you've lost, right? Because your nutrient stores is what helps the baby start to grow in the first place. Now you've had the baby, you've got nutrient depletion, you need to restore your own, nutrient stores in your body, but then to be able to not just have what you need, but to be able to pass it through your breast milk to your child for your baby to continue to have, brain development. For example, the brain, when the baby's born, is really only like 25% developed. There's still so much more growing the baby needs to do. So you really need to make sure you're getting still the choline, the omega-3s, the folate, all those things, all of the vitamin Bs. There are so many vitamin Bs that are so important for growth that you need to make sure that you're getting those to continue to support your baby postpartum.
So, do you have a different formula for postpartum, or do you recommend just keeping with the same prenatal into postpartum?
Yeah, so for ours, it's good to continue, right? So the same nutrients and levels that you needed, like I said, in utero is what you need postpartum. So there's no switch up for our prenatal. You just continue getting the same bag and continue doing the same one sachet a day through your postpartum period. But there are some out there that they do kind of play. I've seen that. There are some companies that do kind of play with the formulation, but when you really look at their ingredients, they haven't really changed a whole lot. It's just packaging. They're advertising it slightly different, right? The outside looks a little different, but really what's on the inside is primarily the same. They might refine one thing here or there just a
Mhm.
little bit, but in reality, it's basically the same formulation.
Yeah, and how long would you recommend taking it into your postpartum?
So I would say you should take it through that first year, or at least through the first 6 months, right? It depends on how long are you breastfeeding, and you're solely breastfeeding for the first 6 months, right? So that's when it's really super critical. But and then, after 6 months, you start introducing some solids. So then they can start to get some things from the food that they're eating, but they're still not eating a lot, right? It's still pureed foods. They're not gonna be able to get, like, for example, your animal meats from the bone, like, that's bone broths and stews, like, those are really, like, nutrient dense. Well, baby's not consuming that, right? So, I would recommend through that first year to do that so that it not only restores your nutrient stores in your body, but then, like I said, continues to pass it through to your baby until your baby's really just transitioned to eating a whole foods diet too.
Yeah, I think most of the time I hear a lot of people saying, iron is really crucial and what they typically see, I guess, like, lacking in their diet, or if they do blood work or they're feeling really fatigued. And so, like, iron is like a big one that people are trying to get a lot of. And then I think right now too, there's like a lot of hype around organ meats.
Yes, they are the most nutrient dense food you can actually eat, even though it sounds kinda gross to some
Uh-huh.
people. Organ meats are amazing. Just even if you do a little bit, like, once a week, it
Yeah.
makes a world of a difference.
Yeah. And so you're saying like the raw or like actual organ meat rather than like a supplementation of like a liver or
Yeah, I would say, like, yeah, consume it like a beef liver or, like, they have, like, the chicken kidneys or hearts or turkey, things of those nature, get them at the store and cook them and eat and consume them, and
yeah.
that is the best way to get it. I did wanna touch a little bit on the iron. So the iron, yes, iron is very important. However, a lot of times people think that you're gonna be tired because you are, anemic, you don't have enough iron. Actually, if you have too much iron, you'll have the same symptoms. And iron is one of those nutrients that you can't just pee it out if you have too much. You actually have to, like, you have to bleed, right, in order to lose the iron. And there's a lot of risk to you and your baby if you have too much. So that is one thing where we actually purposefully excluded it from our prenatal because not every woman should supplement with iron. So that's one where we do think, like you said, you should go get lab work done and really assess where are your iron levels at? What does your ferritin look like? And then you can, if supplementation is truly necessary, then do so. But really, we think like if you consume, liver once a week, you got your red meat in there for the normal average woman, that's likely, getting you enough of the iron that you don't wanna overdo it and then cause additional problems from doing that.
Yeah, that's so true, and that's so important that that's something that, you've even considered and done because, yeah, you can have, a lot of people think like, "Oh, like low iron," but you can have too high of iron. And I think with like supplements too, like how you said, like pee it out, like can you kind of like talk about that a little bit and like dive into that? Because I think some people kind of know what that is, but other people are also worried, like, "Oh, well, what if I have too much of this?" Or what happens
Right.
if I have like excess or I don't need all of these vitamins and minerals in this prenatal.
Right. Yeah, so most vitamins and minerals, you can just lose them through, liquid. Like, so your body will just process what it needs, and whatever it doesn't need is gonna come out waste, right? So urine, feces. But there are ones like iron where that's not the case. They get stored and trapped in your body, and they can't come out that way, and the only way you lose them is through bleeding. And so with most of the nutrients, though, that you'll have in your prenatals, like your vitamin Bs and vitamin D and things of that nature, you will just if your body doesn't need say it was 1,000 milligrams and your body really only needed 800, it's just going to excrete the remaining amount that it does not need. That's oftentimes, like, you'll see it's kind of like a gross thing, but, like, if you ever, like, look after you pee, and you're taking supplements, it might be, like, extra yellow or, the extra color. It's because it's, excreting some of those excess that you don't need. That's why the coloring is slightly different.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes it's almost like a neon color,
Yeah,
like, very bright. But that's why it's important to, like you said, like, hydrate and make sure you're drinking a lot of water because that's also helping clear out your system
yeah,
and get everything through and giving, our body a channel and a fluid to pass through and help with that, like,
right.
breakdown.
Yeah. Yep, that's absolutely right. Yep. And actually a lot of the absorption and digestion actually happens in your gut, right? And so it's really important to make sure that you have a healthy gut, right? So like your probiotics. So that's the other thing I think I did a lot differently this last time than with my first two children is I made sure I was consuming yogurt every day, whether I added it to
Mm,
the tea or I just, made a little like yogurt parfait myself at home. But there's also, I mean, people do also buy probiotics and prebiotics, like almost like a supplement that they can take. But I prefer to do it from the fermented foods myself as eating it. But that is, yeah. So that's another important thing to focus on as well is making sure that you are, you know, getting those prebiotics and those probiotics in your gut so that your gut can work appropriately to absorb all of those nutrients and then excrete what you don't.
awesome. Cool. So what else, being you have 3 and, going through this journey, working with nutrition so closely, what would be something else that you would want new moms to really know and have more information on or have them look into more and do some research on?
Well, so for new moms, I guess I would say is really focusing on in the postpartum period, the nutrition, making sure that they're getting what they need for to support the breastfeeding as well, but also not just with nutrition, but also thing like pelvic floor therapy. So
Mhm.
unfortunately, for whatever reason, here in the Western hemisphere, we don't have that as part of our standard postpartum care. Like, for example, I had to request it. And when I requested it, I was actually asked, like, why do I want this? I'm like, well, I've had 3 vaginal deliveries. Like, I should probably do some exercises to tighten things up and make sure that everything's okay. Like, nobody wants to unnecessarily, have an incontinence issue, right? Like, so it should just be a part of standard care, and yet it's not. So really advocate for yourself and, do that research and look into what you need and what you should get and kinda just demand it. Like, I have a friend, for example, she just had her baby a few weeks ago, and she already put in the request, and she's been fighting between her provider and the insurance company
Wow.
to give her pelvic floor therapy, and they keep just asking, like, "Why do you want this? Why do you" she's like, "I just had a baby. What do you mean, why do I want this? Like, I
Yeah.
like, it's I need this. You shouldn't need any more explanation than that." So really just, yeah, like fight for yourself because in order for you to take care of that baby you just had, you have to take care of yourself first, right? You're no good to them if you aren't healthy yourself.
Right.
So just make sure you're taking care of you so that you can take care of your baby. The other thing on the flip side, for those that are trying to conceive, so your baby will grow from your like I said, your nutrient stores, not necessarily what you eat in a day. So if you're thinking about you wanna have a baby, maybe you don't even wanna have a baby right now, but start doing the things today that are gonna
Mhm.
support that development down the road. Because oftentimes, right, you're pregnant and you don't even know it. And in those first few weeks, that's when like neural tube formation happens, the heart forms, brain starts developing. Like there's a lot of development that happens really early on before you even know that you're pregnant. But so really just make sure that you're doing, eating that good nutrient dense diet early. It's never too early really to start a prenatal, but typically it's recommended that if you think you want to have a baby, like start 3 months before you really want to try to
Mhm.
conceive to get those nutrient stores up so that you're good. So, I would say just really, like, think about what would you need when you're pregnant and in postpartum and start that early on because it's really a lot of the same, right? The eggs, the fatty fish, it's all the same nutrients that you need to get you there.
Yes, amazing. So, where can we find you, get in contact with you, reach you? Where do you hang out on social media? Tell us all the
Yeah.
details.
So our website is mothersense.shop. can also find us on Instagram and on Facebook with the same type of handle, mothersense_shop.
Very cool. Well, thank you so much for coming and just sharing your knowledge and your information and letting us know a little bit about you.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure speaking with you.
You too. Thank you, mamas, so much for listening. Remember, you are a rock star. I believe in you. Let's doula this. Let's crank it up a notch and let's kick it into high gear together. Hit that subscribe button, share this episode with a friend, message me, email me, call me, beat me. You know how to reach me. We're doing this, mamas. I am so excited to catch you here next week. This is your one-stop go-to place for helping you find the resources you need to make the best choices for you and your family during pregnancy, birth, and most importantly, postpartum. See you later, mamas.